Hello folks, I'm out here freezing my walnuts off this morning. My mate's just bought this little beauty round. He's had it delivered today. It's a VW ID Buzz, which he's just leased via Lease Loco using my link, which of course is in the video description. I'm going to now show you, I'm going to go inside, sit at my desk where I usually dwell, and I'm going to show you how I think he saved several £1,000s into the tens of thousands of pounds by leasing this car and not buying it. Let's run the numbers.
Okay, folks, so let's just start things off by showing you that actually this is a £67,000 car, nearly 66 and a bit, Martin's particular car, because it has got some optional extras on it. The closest thing I can find to it is this one that doesn't have the options on. It should be 65.5 grand, currently discounted by 9 down to £56,500. So if you had cash, you could go and spend 56.5 grand on it and walk away with one. Likewise, you could also go and get your own PCP, your own personal loan. You could get hire purchase. You could do what you want with it. All right. So we're going to base all the numbers around that. Just for the sake of argument, I've run it through the VW finance checker on the finance calculator on the VW website. This obviously shows the car at its full price, but we'll see why that doesn't really make much of a difference in a sec. On the road retail cash price is 63,835 according to this. Excess mileage is 8.24. That's exactly the same excess mileage rate that Martin's got on his lease. 4.8% APR, which is pretty decent. Deposit, I've put in exactly the same amount, £2,672, which is what Martin's paid deposit on his lease. 23 monthly payments of £938 and 80 pence, but that's with a dealer contribution of 5.5 grand. All right, so this is something they often do. If you have a PCP, they'll say, we'll give you a dealer contribution. Usually, they're just giving you the sort of discount they would have given you if you went in and paid cash, if it's a car that they're doing discounts on at the time. I've also been onto the Halifax website and got a quote for PCP from them. I've lost the tab for that because I'm an idiot, but I'll put the figures up for that for you, and let's check it all out right now. Now, as you can see, some of this spreadsheet's blacked out at the minute, but I'm just going to walk you through it. So it's a VW ID Buzz Style Pro. As I said, there are a couple of options on it. It's got the white paint, which I think is £300. It's got a tow bar, a couple of other bits. So it's around about 66 grand on the road, closer to 67, I think, but don't quote me on that. 2-year, 10,000 mile a year lease. It's actually done it through his business, which was all ex-VAT on the stats he sent through to me, but I've made it including VAT just to make it easier for everyone watching this. Upfront, £2,672, 23 monthly payments of £297. There is an excess mileage charge of 8.24p per mile if you go over that 10,000. To give you an idea, it works out just over £400 if you did an extra 5,000 miles in the car. So not too bad, you might say. The total cost of that lease is £9,500. Now, if we get a quote from the VW website, £938 a month with the same initial payment, as I said, as we've just seen, 23 monthly payments, total cost, that's 24 grand. If we were to say, well, I'm a cash buyer and arrange our own finance, Halifax PCP 7.9%. I always go to Halifax just because they've got a quick online PCP calculator, so you can just work it out for yourself based on their current rates. I'm sure you could probably find a better deal than 7.9% from an independent finance company, but I wouldn't imagine it's going to be significantly so. Same deposit again, £1,163 a month on that one, which gives you 29 grand. But the telling bit is here. The VW one, you've got to pay 38.5 grand if you want to keep the car at the end of the 2 years. And the Halifax one, you've only got to pay 33.5 if you want to keep it at the end of the 2 years. So we know all this now. We know how much it's costing us to have it for 2 years. It costs us on that first PCP option 24 grand, on the second one 29.5 grand, on the lease 9.5 grand. Now, the next thing we need to consider is what the value of that car is going to be in 2 years. And that's a really difficult thing to do, mainly because they aren't 2 years old yet. So the market's not flooded with 2-year-old examples that we can gauge something on. Secondly, used values are going down at a rate of knots at the moment. So I'm going to try and base this on roughly what I think it would be today if it came back into market with all these circumstances. And thirdly, Loads of these were being discounted. They've done an exceptional number of these cheap leases. They're all 2-year leases. So in exactly 2 years, the market's going to be flooded with used VW ID Buzz, and all that's going to do is drop their used value because you're going to have too much supply and not enough demand. So to try and do this in a fair way, I've come up with 3 figures. One's a worst case, so worst case scenario of the car's value. One's best case, and one's probably more realistic. And you have to think as well, this is not what you'd be able to go and buy one for if you walked into a car dealership. This is the actual value of the car. So that's trade value. What you're going to get if you part exchange it, what you're going to get if you sell it to Motorway or someone like that. I think worst case scenario on it is 31 grand. Remember, the new price at the moment, although the official on the road price is 66, the new price, you can go and get one new for 56.5. So that's knocked 10 grand off immediately. You then have to consider that there's going to be absolutely tons of these on the market in exactly 2 years. And that really is a factor that we need to think about quite seriously, because that's going to have a big effect on it, I'm sure. I don't see how it can't. So I've said best case scenario, that car's worth 41 grand in 2 years. And for a new car at 56.5, if we're saying it's at 56.5, to lose 15 grand in the first 2 years is actually pretty good. And especially for an EV where we've seen depreciation being higher because of company cars coming back into circulation and everything else. Worst case scenario, I said it's 31 grand. And I think we might be looking at worst case scenario. I could really see a world where in 2 years that ID Buzz is available for say 33 from a dealer, maybe 34 from a dealer, and realistically you might be doing well to get 31 for it yourself. Some of you may scoff at that, but I think that's actually reasonably realistic. And then I've put a realistic one sort of in the middle at 36 grand. It's halfway between the two, really, more or less. And that means they're going to retail for probably 39 for a 2-year-old ID Buzz. I think I've been quite generous with that realistic figure. But there you go. I'm trying to play devil's advocate, folks. So the initial cost of having that is 9.5 grand on the lease, 24 grand on PCP number 1, 29 grand on PCP number 2. For cash, worst case scenario, 25.5. Best case scenario, 15.5. And that realistic one, 20.5. Now, this is an interesting one as well. Total cost of ownership if you sold it at 2 years old. So on the PCP, that means paying that optional final payment and then selling the car. And actually, in most of these circumstances, you just wouldn't do it because you'd be in negative equity. You know, you're not going to pay your 38 grand final payment if the car's got a trade value of 31. You're just not going to do it. A canny car dealer might use that to try and push you into another one. They'll knock something off the deposit on the new one. But realistically, if you're a little bit canny and you know your numbers, you're not going to be sweet talked into that. You're not going to pay that optional final payment. You'll just get into a new car yourself. So if you were to do that, theoretically, the lease has still cost you 9.5 grand because you've got nothing to buy and sell. So that's unaffected. PCP number 1's cost you 31,800. PCP number 2 has cost you 32,000. That's on worst case scenario. On best case scenario, PCP number 1 at 21,804. Number 2 at 22 grand. And the realistic one is that they both cost you more or less 27 grand against 9.5 on a lease. Now, that was a particularly fantastic lease deal. Probably VW trying to meet their sort of EV quota before the end of the year. But likewise, a £9,000 reduction on the asking price if you go and pay for cash is pretty special, really, isn't it? Especially as this is a car that not too long ago had huge waiting lists because it's very, very popular. It's a really nice car. I reviewed one for Men and Motors recently and I really enjoyed it a lot. So there we go. This is not a video to tell you that leasing's always the way to go, and it's certainly not financial advice. I'm not a qualified financial advisor. I'm not FCA regulated. You should always get financial advice from someone who is. However, it does show you that when the lease deal's right, it can work very, very nicely. This is a real life case study. Martin's one of my very best mates. It's going to cost him £9,500 to have that car for 2 years. It actually costing his business £9,500 to have it for 2 years. And obviously he's also got some tax benefits coming from that. And if he were to have paid cash for it, it would have cost him £6,000 and £15,000 more to have the same car for the same period of time. If he was doing the PCP on it, it would have cost him even more than that. The other thing I should mention is Martin wasn't in the market for an EV, but it just come time to change the family car, which has got over 100,000 miles on it. It's starting to cost quite a lot of money to keep it on the road. And he's just started having a look at leasing as a possible option. And obviously, as a small business owner, leasing an EV could be quite beneficial to him as well. And this deal just happened to come along. And this is a brilliant, perfect case almost of shop the deal and not the car. Because probably 6 weeks ago, if you'd asked Martin to name 10 cars that he might buy for his family car, this would not have been on it. Like, no way. But he's actually gone and thought, actually, that's going to deliver us a fair bit of value. Gives us a couple of years to try out sort of living with an EV and see if that works for us. You know, so it's great. But this to me is what leasing is all about. It's looking for the deals and really taking advantage when the deals come along, and not being massively specific about what it is that you're particularly after. I dare say otherwise Martin might have gone for something like an XC90, possibly even like full Galaxy, something like that. But he just saw the value in this, thought that's a great deal, I'm going to go for it. And there are also lots of benefits through putting it through the business, and he does have a genuine business need to have a vehicle like this. So yeah, it's great, really. Happy story. If you want to check out Lease Loco and check out the latest lease deals available at the moment, click the link in the video description. Be a good chap or chapess. And please give this video a thumbs up. Please leave a comment. Please share where you can. You know, it all helps. Any kind of engagement with the videos really helps. And that gives me a bit more motivation to make more like it. So thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And I'll catch you on the next one.